Today we will discuss about extracorporeal methods of drug removal. So in this we are going to perform the medical procedure which will be done outside our body, like filtration of the blood or removing the waste from your blood, etc. So here this is a medical procedure which is performed outside the body. So this is generally done for the patients with end stage renal clearance and drug overdose to remove accumulated drug. So that is nothing but the patients who are suffering with the end stage renal clearance, and also if there is an overdose to the patient. So if you want to remove that accumulated drug, so we are going to follow this extracorporeal methods of drug removal. That is nothing but the outside the body we are going to collect the blood and we are going to purify that one, and again we are going to inject into your body. So these are some of the methods which is called as extracorporeal methods of drug removal. That is nothing but your unwanted or accumulated drug that will be removed from your body. So what are the different methods we are going to use means, first one is the hemodialysis, second one is peritoneal dialysis, third one is hemofiltration, fourth one is hemodiafiltration, fifth one is hemoperfusion. So these are all the methods which are used to clear, that is your extracorporeal methods which is used to clear your drugs from your body. Okay, so first one, let us see about hemodialysis. So what is this hemodialysis means? It is a method of removing creatinine, urea and free water from blood when the kidneys are in renal failure. So mainly this hemodialysis is done for the patients to remove the substances like creatinine, urea and free water that is available in your blood. Okay, so this method is generally done to the patients who suffer with the renal failure. So what is the main principle involved in this means, diffusion of solutes across your semi-permeable membrane. So how the working will be means, so there will be a machine called as the dialysis machine will be there. So that will be pumping out your blood from your body, and that blood will be mixed with your anticoagulant and it is circulated through a filter. So outside your body, so there will be a filter called as the dialyzer. So that blood which is pumped out from your body is filtered or circulated through this filter which is called as the dialyzer. So inside the dialyzer you will be having some porous membrane. So that is nothing but which is called as the porous membrane is called as dialysate. That is whatever the blood that you want to purify, so that will be passing through your porous membrane. So what happens, automatically the diffusion of extra fluid and waste from the blood enters into the dialysate. So along with the blood you will be having some accumulated amount of the drug and also the waste present in your blood that will be passing through your dialysate. So automatically what happens, the pure blood only will be pumped out, that is only the purified blood will be pumped out, and the extra waste will be connected on that membrane only, that is on the dialysate. So by this process you will be getting the purified blood without any waste or any accumulated drug. Okay, so here what is the major role that is playing means dialysate. So dialysate is nothing but, so it is a porous membrane which separates, that is which will filter your unwanted waste and accumulated drug in your body, thereby it will be purifying your blood. Okay, so what is the mechanism involved in this means, the membrane is permeable to water and small ions, but it is impermeable to blood cells, lipids and plasma proteins. It utilizes counter current flow, that is dialysate is flowing in opposite direction to blood flow in extracorporeal circuit. So as this is permeable to waters and small ions only, so your whatever the waste will be there, that will be coming out, only the blood cells, the blood related components will be retaining. So how the flow of the blood will be means, so if the dialysate is flowing is one direction, so the blood will be flowing in another direction, that is in the opposite direction they will be flowing, and your diffusion of the molecules, that is your blood purification process will be taking place. Okay, so this is the mechanism of your hemodialysis. So there are mainly three types of hemodialysis will be performed. The first one is conventional hemodialysis, daily hemodialysis and nocturnal hemodialysis. Coming to the conventional hemodialysis, so this should be done 3 times per week for 3 to 4 hours. So for every 3 weeks, that is for in a week you have to do 3 times. So in the 3 times you have to do this process for every 3 to 4 hours, and the patient blood is withdrawn to a tube at a rate of 3 to 400 cc per minute, and blood circulates throughout the machine every 15 minutes. So in this conventional hemodialysis you should be performed whatever the hemodialysis should be performed 3 times per week, and also it should be performed for every 3 to 4 hours, and the blood will be circulating in the machine for every 15 minutes. Okay, so this is called conventional hemodialysis. Next, daily hemodialysis. So daily means you have to perform daily, that is it is used by the patients who have dialysis at home, and it should be done for 2 hours or 6 days a week. So it should be performed for every day you have to perform this process. So you should take a gap of 2 hours to perform this dialysis. Next, nocturnal hemodialysis. It should be performed 6 nights a week and 6 to 10 hours per session while the patient sleeps. So this nocturnal hemodialysis should not be done when the patient is that is in the morning periods. So when the patient is sleeping only you have to perform this one. So when it will should be performed means in a week you should perform only in the night time only. So for how much time you should perform means you can perform for about 6 to 10 hours. Okay. Next, what are the applications? So where you can use this hemodialysis means it is used in the chronic renal failures, that is the patient suffering with the chronic renal failure. So that is most of the time for a number of years if they are suffering with the renal problems, so you can use this hemodialysis for those patients. And if you are having any poisoning due to agents like salicylate, methanol, lithium, etc., so you can adapt this model for purification of your blood. Okay, so this is about your hemodialysis. Next, peritoneal dialysis. So this is done by introducing a catheter into the peritoneal cavity and dialyzing fluid is passed through it. So catheter is nothing but a small instrument. So if it will be introduced into your peritoneal cavity, okay, and the fluid whatever that is there, that is your dialyzing fluid, will be passed through it. So here not only the diffusion plays a major role, but osmosis also plays a major role in this process. So the main principle involved in this peritoneal dialysis is both osmosis and diffusion. So this process utilizes patient's peritoneum as a membrane across which fluids or dissolved substances are exchanged from the blood. So here we are not using any medium, that is any semi-permeable membrane or nothing we are using, just we are taking the peritoneum as a membrane. Okay, then the fluids will be passed through that one. So this membrane restricts movements of formed elements like RBC and large molecules, but allows the movement of small molecules according to the concentration gradient. So as you know that in the osmosis, concentration gradient plays a major role. So here blood components and all other components will be retained, and only the drug or waste material will be allowed to go from your fluid itself. Okay, so here peritoneal dialysis is nothing but we are not using any type of membrane here, just we are taking the peritoneum as a membrane and the fluids will be passed to that one only. Okay, so what are the different techniques, that is the types of peritoneal dialysis which you will have means, the first one is manual intermittent peritoneal dialysis, automated cycler intermittent peritoneal dialysis, continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis. So these three are the three types of peritoneal dialysis available. So first let us see the manual intermittent peritoneal dialysis. So here you will be having some bags. Okay, so those bags will be filled with the fluid, that is your dialysis fluid, and it should be warm to the body temperature. So it should be adjusted to your body temperature, and the fluid is infused for 10 minutes for 60 to 90 minutes and drained in about 10 to 20 minutes. So here the major principle that follows means osmosis and diffusion process will be playing a major role. But first of all your blood will be collected, that is your fluid will be collected into your bags, then it should be warm to the body temperature. You should adjust the temperature to your body, then the fluid will be getting purified, then you have to again drain into the body. Okay, so for how much time you have to perform this filtration means for about 60 to 90 minutes you have to perform, then it is back drained into your body. Okay, so that is manual intermittent peritoneal dialysis. Next, automated cycler intermittent peritoneal dialysis. So this is performed by people in the home, that is bedridden patients who are there. So if they are having any chronic renal failures, they will be opting this one. So the patient sets the cycle at bedtime, so the dialysis takes place when they are sleeping. So this is majorly performed during the sleeping period only. So it should be performed 6 to 7 nights a week. Okay, you can go for 6 to 7 nights also to perform this one. So the major difference is that we can perform only at the night time only, this automated cycler intermittent peritoneal dialysis. Next, the third one is continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis. This is performed in the day by keeping 2 liters of fluid in the abdomen at all times and exchanging fluids 4 to 6 times per day. So here we should keep 2 liters of dialysate fluid in the abdomen of the patient. Then we have to exchange, so after one purification process you have to exchange the fluids in your abdomen. Okay, so that is once we are taking the fluid out, we are replacing with the same amount of fluid into your body. So that is called continuously we are exchanging the fluids, so there will be no deficiency of the fluid in your body. So this process is called as the continuous ambulatory peritoneal dialysis. So what the solution will be containing, that is you are maintaining some solution in your body. So that composition per dialysis solution will be containing NaCl 5.6 grams, calcium chloride 0.26 grams, magnesium chloride 0.15 grams, sodium lactate 5.0 grams, anhydrous lactose 13.60 grams, and water for injection 1000 ml. So this 1000 ml in the continuous ambulatory patients you have to take 2000 ml. So you are based upon this composition you have to prepare for 2000 ml and you have to inject into the abdomen of your patient. Okay, so this is the composition of the dialysis fluid which is used in your body. Next, coming to the hemofiltration. So this occurs through convective solute transport, that is movement of dissolved substances occurring through the filtering membrane. So in the hemofiltration we are using the filtration membrane. So with that membrane only your purification process will be getting done. So the blood will be passed through a set of tubing. So here you can see in the diagram, so the blood inside that is from the patient you will be collecting. So after purification process the blood will be out to the patient and the waste will be going through other part. Okay, so this hemodialysis filtration will be using the filtration membrane. So it consists of a filtration circuit via a machine to semi-permeable membrane where waste products and water are removed. Okay, so in the middle of that you are seeing some line. So that is called as the semi-permeable membrane through which all the waste will be collected this side and your pure blood will be connected at the top of that. So the positive hydrostatic pressure drives water and solutes across the filter membrane from the blood to the filtrate compartment from which it is drained out. So when it is passing through this equipment, the waste will be coming through one end and your purified blood will be coming through the other end. Okay, so what are the different types of this hemofiltration? The first one is continuous veno-venous hemofiltration. So in this a hemofilter is placed between cannulated femoral, subclavian or interjugular veins. So the filtration process which takes place through these veins is called as the continuous veno-venous hemofiltration. So next continuous arteriovenous hemofiltration, that is blood will be passed through hemofilter that is placed between cannulated femoral artery and the vein. Okay, so whatever the filtration, that is assembly that is placed between artery and vein is called the continuous arteriovenous hemofiltration. So these are the some of the types of hemofiltration. So the mechanism will be same, but these are the types of filtration that is going to occur. Next, the fifth one is the hemoperfusion. So the blood is passed through an adsorbent material which attracts the toxic substances. Adsorbent is fixed to a solid surface inside a column. So here in the hemoperfusion we are not taking any semi-permeable membrane or anything. So just we are taking a material called as the adsorbent material. So in the adsorbent, what happens in the surface level itself, it will absorb, that is it will absorb all the waste materials. Okay, so that adsorbent is fixed to a solid surface. So one surface will be there, so on the top of that you will be applying some adsorbent material. So on that adsorbent material only your whatever the waste material is there, that will be absorbed on that surface. So the patient blood is passed through the column and the toxins bind to the adsorbent, allowing cleansed blood to flow from out of the column. So the simple procedure, so whatever the impure blood, that is the blood is having any accumulated drug or waste products, it should be pumped into your this column, that is hemoperfusion column. So what happens as we are keeping one adsorption column in the middle, so whatever the waste and toxins that are there in the blood will be absorbed at your column itself, and the pure blood will be coming out. Okay, so through their veins. Okay, so this is the hemoperfusion. In the hemoperfusion we are not using any semi permeable membrane, but just we are using a column which is having your adsorbent material. Okay, that adsorbent material plays a major role in absorbing all the unnecessary waste that is present in your body. Okay, Next, what are the different adsorbents we can use in this preparation of this column? Means you can use the activated charcoal and amberlite resin. Okay, in the activated charcoal, this absorbs both polar and non-polar drugs, and amberlite resin will have greater affinity for non-polar drugs. So where you can perform this hemoperfusion method means, so you can use in accidental poisoning and in reducing blood concentration of lipid soluble or protein bound drugs, like example barbiturates and theophylline. So if you have the accidental poisoning, just they will pass your blood through this channel, that is your column. So whatever the poisonous substances that are there, they will be adsorbed on the surface of the adsorption column, and the pure blood will be coming out. Okay, so these are the different methods of performing your extracorporeal methods of drug removal. That is nothing but the waste drug removal from your body. So these are all the 5 types of methods which are used for your drug removal. So this is very important topic. So the last topic which is there in your unit, that is your effect of hepatic disease on pharmacokinetics. That is, so when a person is suffering with any hepatic disease, so automatically there will be change in your PK parameters, that is your ADME process. So when a person is in any diseased condition, your PK parameters will be changed. So let us know when the person is suffering with any hepatic disease, so what are the changes that is going to occur in your pharmacokinetic part. So here the first point, the drugs are metabolized by enzymes located in the liver. Hepatic disease leads to drug accumulation. So if drug accumulation takes place, what happens? Automatically your metabolism will be decreased, and if metabolism is decreased, automatically your kidney function will also be decreased. Okay, so majorly I have told you already that creatinine clearance plays a major role. So here the creatinine clearance is used to measure kidney function and renal clearance of the drugs. So if your kidney is not working properly, so the first thing they'll be doing, that they'll be finding out the creatinine clearance in your body. If it is not performing well, then your kidneys are getting damaged or your kidneys are not functioning properly. So the creatinine clearance in the first point, it will be playing a major role. If any person is having any renal problems, so they'll be going for checking this creatinine clearance. So the tests like aminotransferase and alanine aminotransferase are the common serum enzymes used to test liver cell damage. So how we are going to test the liver cell damage means by using these 2 enzymes like aminotransferase and alanine aminotransferase. So these are the serum enzymes which will be using for testing your liver. So why we are testing the liver means to know the metabolism. So if these enzymes are not working properly, your breakdown of your drug will not be occurring. So thereby accumulation of the drug will be taking place in the liver itself. So what happens? Automatically there will be that part of accumulated drug will be distributed throughout the body. So it will be getting settled in your body only. So that leads to the toxic reactions in your body. So this plays a major role, that is these enzymes will be tested to check your liver. Next, serum bilirubin. So this is used to check biliary obstruction or interference with bile flow. So bile flow will also be playing a major role. So we are going to check the serum bilirubin concentration. So presently no single test accurately assess the total liver function. To know the severity of hepatic impairment, some elimination marker drugs like antipyrin, indocyanine green, monoethylene glycine, xylidine and galactose are used. So we cannot say particularly, that is we cannot say 100% that your liver is not functioning properly or not. So but we can use some marker drugs. So by using these drugs you can check whether your liver functioning is performing well or not. So the albumin or bilirubin, which is used for evaluation of your liver impairment. So these are the 2 substances which will be used for evaluation, that is your testing of your liver impairment. So all these factors, that is your liver function. So as you know that once the drug enter into your body, first metabolism process will be taking place, absorption, afterwards metabolism will be taking distribution, and metabolism will be taking place. So if metabolism is not proper, your functioning of the liver will also be not proper, because if the liver enzymes are not working properly, your breakdown of the drug will not be taking place, thereby settling, that is your accumulated drug will be settling in your body. So as they are accumulating in your body, your renal function will also be getting decreased. So if that functioning is not proper, it leads to the toxic reactions in your body. So these are all the effect of hepatic disease. So if a person is having any hepatic disease, all these parameters will be changed. And if you want to know whether any person is suffering with any renal disease or hepatic disease, so you have to check whether proper enzyme function is going on or not, the whether bile secretion is there or not. So all these should be checked before when you want to go for checking your hepatic function and this on the role of your pharmacokinetics. So these are all the effects of hepatic disease on the pharmacokinetic part. Okay, if metabolism is lowered, your functioning of your kidneys will also be lowered, so thereby leading to your toxic reactions in your body. So these are the general methods or tests which should be followed to check the hepatic disease in any patient. Okay, so with this your fifth unit is completed.